the truth profound. We bees are Germans here. For me to the message clear. Go Paul, Das, and Paul. They say DUANE, so writer leads the way. Time to madness, it's bright. Gotta wake up, see the light.
So this dream started off a little bit on the kind of emotional side. I had found myself just kind of sitting on a ledge on top of a building. It's kind of a concrete brick building. It's about 4 or 5 stories tall. Just sitting on the ledge, dangling my feet, and just had this sensation and just feeling that something wasn't right, wasn't happy, and I wasn't thinking about jumping or anything, and nothing like that at all. It was just a nice view. Really wasn't looking out on a cityscape despite being on top of the building like that. It was more just kind of rocky terrains with some canyons, fast flowing river with some minor white cap rapids, and some dense forest kind of up on the ledges, probably further on beyond that, which I couldn't see. It's more of a relaxing kind of scene, but yet I think I was sitting there because I had some sort of internal conflict going on, and it was just nice to be sitting there. Fairly sure it was during sunset, just with the sky starting to light up with all these beautiful yellow, reds, orange, and yellows, and then some purples here scattered about. So I was just thinking to myself, just trying to think my way through the issues. But what was weird is I didn't know what those issues were, the internal conflicts, but yet I'm there thinking about them, but I don't know what they are, but somehow I do, but I guess consciously I do not, which was a unusual concept, but I accepted it nonetheless. So just sitting there, trying to contemplate. The sun's now almost fully down. The shadow is starting to cast across the treetops, cloaking the canyon in shadow. And at first there were some evening birds flying around, chirping. And those quickly turned into more crickets singing their song at night. Some croaking off in the distance of frogs, probably along the shore of the river. And some night birds. They make a very specific noise. At least in the dream, they did. It just kind of lulled me into a sense of comfort. I hear rustling coming down below me, but further off into the brush, kind of where the rocky terrain kind of like drops down into part of the canyon. And this part of the area is kind of like high desert. There are plants, but they're a little bit more scraggly, not as dense. And I just hear more kind of rumbling around, some rocks being displaced and rolling down the canyon side, the echoes chambering out. And then I would hear another kind of in behind it, as if there was more than one. They were following each other. And I just stared, staying quiet. I'm up 5 stories. I'm fine. And the noises stop. And then I start hearing lighter footsteps, kind of coming from the opposite direction of the canyon. And they're all real close to each other. And I start hearing a voice. And it's sounding like an older man. And I can barely make out what he's saying, but if you've ever been on the high desert and some of these canyons, your voice just carries. You can just talk at a normal voice tone, and it can carry up to a mile. At this point, I hear the old man asking, "Is he up there?" And I can hear these scruffs, rough kind of noises. There weren't words. They're more kind of like animalistic noises. And the old man responded to them, saying something along the lines of, "Ah, I understand." And about at that time, the shuffling on the ground, the two heavier ones and the lighter one that was obviously the old man, started heading my way. They're not really far down the ledge. They're pretty close, 30 feet. But there is a ledge there, kind of a steep decline, and they're just working their way up it. And right on the edge of the brush line, the old man walks out. And before, there were no lights down there. It was just dark. It was the building. There really wasn't any sidewalks, concrete, asphalt. It was nothing, just the building. But when I had looked down there, when the old man comes walking out, there's now like a sidewalk about 2-3 times the width you would see in a normal sidewalk surrounding the building. And there were lampposts just sitting out past that in the dirt. And he walks in, illuminated by the lamp nearby. He starts looking around as if he's searching for something, or I feel someone. And as I notice that, he's looking off to the side. The two sets of heavier thuds are nearing very close and behind the old man. With little thumps and thuds. And suddenly I heard this clack noise. Another click. Clack, click. And into the light, just very, very slowly, I see a new figure appearing. It's its head first. It has a very canine-like look on it. Canine muzzle comes in the full view, at least its head does. And it has the fur color of like a very dark dog, maybe black. But then I notice its face is very wolf-like. The rest of its body moves further into the light, and I'm squinting as hard as I can to get a better look at it. It finally steps fully into the light, and it is a upright wolf walking on two legs. This one is kind of humanoidish, about the shape of a human, except this thing is pushing 7, maybe 8 feet tall. I'm 4 or 5 stories in the air. I can't tell exactly, but just comparatively to the old man. And it starts looking around, sniffing the air. And I hear another click, clack, clack, click. It's the second one following up behind it, a little bit more quicker than the other into the light. It wasn't a slow reveal. This one was also an upright canid, or canid would probably be the best way to put it. But this one did not look like a black wolf. It looked like a hyena. Very stocky build, thick muzzle, not super long, more scruffy face, and those ears that they're known to have. And they look at each other. Then they look in opposite directions from one another. Then, as the old man's just looking around, one of the creatures is looking off to over their right shoulder, the other one over their left. And then their heads suddenly rotate inwards in my direction and up, simultaneously looking directly at me up on the ledge. The hyena lets out its laugh, almost as an alert, like, "Ha, I found you." The laughing hyena pushes its fellow canid-like creature, and it stumbles a little bit, growls, and suddenly bites back at the hyena. Then it also looks directly back up at me again. And then the old man notices and follows their gaze and looks directly up at me as well. I know they can't see me. I'm 4 or 5 stories up. It's dark. There's no lights up there. And they're standing in light, have to look past light to be able to see me. They're not seeing anything, but for some reason I decided to mock them. Go, ha! You can't get me up here. You can't even get into the building. What are you gonna do? And then it's just suddenly in my head I thought, wait, why did I say that? Why am I mocking them? First of all, I don't know who that man is, and second of all, these I'm gonna call them werewolves. That's what they look like. Just I've never seen like a hyena like one. That was actually kind of cool. But despite that, I'm questioning myself in my head. Why did I just do that? I don't know if they can get in. All I know is the spot on top of this building. And then the wolf lets out a very deep grunt. Just a grunt, a really deep one. It resonated through my bones. It almost felt like the building itself resonated. I think the word for it in the cryptid community is ultrasound. Instead of high pitch, it's a really deep tone that just resonates through everything. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Then the old man reaches his hand up in the air and flags forward, and the two creatures dart faster than my eyes could even see. And next thing I know, I hear scraping coming on the side of the building. At first, I was thinking they were trying to climb up after me, but they weren't. They were scraping at what looked like a potential entry point. And the next thing I know, I heard a crash, creak, bang, as I'm assuming maybe a door, a boarded up window with some sort of metal plating was just bent, stretched, and creaked out of the way. And at that point, it was just a mad dash, a rumbling as the two creatures come plowing through the entryway. And I look behind me, and there is a man entryway there, just one of those stairs with a door exits at the top. But there's no door on it. And as it go crashing in, despite being 4 or 5 floors beneath me, I can hear the crashing, scraping, growling, grunting as they rush to the building, trying to find their way to the stairwell, as it just echoes up at me. For some reason, I'm not panicking, but I should be. I look back down, and the old man is walking towards the entryway, staring up at me. And the next thing I know, the wolves were at the top of the stairs, staring out of the doorway, eyes glaring in the moonlight, reflecting off of them, licking their chops. I get nervous, and they come closer. And at this point, I do start to feel scared, and I stand up and face them. My back to the edge of the building. I have nowhere to go. I could go left, I could go right, but there's nowhere to go. And the hyena one leaps at me. I manage to dodge. It doesn't go off the edge. I was kind of hoping that would happen. But then as I'm in the process of regaining where I was, the wolf was upon me. He had reached out, his claws grabbing into my arms and slightly penetrating through my clothing. I could feel the piercing sensation of claws. And the hyena comes up behind me, mouth wide open, heavy, huffing, breathing. The hot breath, the air on my neck sent chills up my spine. I was scared. But from there, it went to latch onto my neck, but then stopped before the teeth penetrated. It was as if it did not want to kill me, or let alone hurt me. And at this point, I just feel overwhelmed, helpless. But they started vibrating really aggressively. Both of the creatures. I don't know what to do. I'm looking past the wolf, and the old man comes walking out from the shadows of the stairwell. He's grinning real big, and he hollers out, "It is time." The two creatures are vibrating even more intensely. It was as if they were massage vibrators pressed up all around me, and they start pressing into me harder and harder. And then suddenly they just start melting, I guess, turning into liquid, a goop. I'm not entirely sure. And then they start mixing into each other. You got a black wolf and then a hyena, werewolves just kind of turning into liquid forms and just kind of mixing. And this is becoming one, but they were still kind of like a tie-dyed kind of swirl throughout their mass that was surrounding me. And they end up enveloping all the way around me. Just very warm, almost comforting feeling as they formed and shaped across every crevice of my body. Some areas they were wanting to enter, but they begin to take a shape around me. And as this happens, I can feel myself grow in many ways. My body's bulking up, my height is increasing, just bigger. And I start enjoying this. It's starting to feel really good. As if a burst of new life, energy that before, when I was sitting on that ledge, I was contemplating many things in my life. And at this point, it's as if they've taken all that negativity away. And I have a new purpose. I'm unsure what that is, but as they form around me, it's as if I could feel two different consciousness licking at the tip of my own, as if we were merging or mixing in some way. But all while this is happening, I'm so overwhelmed by the physical sensations of this goopy werewolf something is forming around me, and I'm growing into it. It's not growing me, I'm growing into it. And as I grow, it stretches and shapes, taking on more of a wolf hyena-like hybrid with me inside. I'm not sure if this is a suit I'm inside, or this is just me. As things progress, it gets harder and harder to tell the difference between my skin and the wolf-like creature, since I am growing into its mass. I start fading a little bit at this point. Instead of thoughts, I start having images flickering and flashing. There's more thinking, more primal at this point. Just images flying by. No real words, just instinct. And I looked back at the human, and he no longer looks like an old man, but he looks younger. And he's giving me the thumbs up. And I'm not entirely sure why. But then he walks up to me. And as if he was answering my thoughts and images, he says, "You know what?" He reaches forward, placing his hand on my stomach. He's just digging his fingernails in and give me a little scratch. And this is as if he's trying to show me that this is real. This is not a suit. It was an odd experience of physically growing and expanding out but yet what was causing it was just a shell on the outside that slowly merged and turned into me. The old man just kind of moves in closer and places his hands on either side of my hips. And I'm not thinking like I usually would. I'm more just in the moment, in the present. The future does not matter. The past of who I was no longer even exists in my thoughts. Just need, not quite hunger, more kind of like a guardianship sensation. And the man looks up at me. I can only estimate I was probably 8 feet tall. And he looks up at me as well and moves in closer, pressing up against my torso. And he smiles and says, "It's okay. Trust your instincts. Don't think. Just do." And the words didn't really make sense, but I kind of translated them through emotion instead. And I let out this really deep growl, but not an intimidating, mean one. Just I instinctually growled, but in a more affirming manner. He chuckles some, then trails his hand from my hip inward. And I look down and watch, and at the time, it wasn't really thoughts. It's just there, just the raw experience, and no words to really go with it. I watch as he trails his hand, and I notice that he's trailing down my groin area. He's chuckling some again, looks up, smiling, and his index finger slid up the side of my sheath, and he snaked his finger down into it, kind of giving the skin a little bit of a tug, as if he's saying, "You should be a really good wolf for me." But now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure that's what he actually said. And I gave out a gruff. Just at this point, I'm just excited. Primal instinct. Just no thoughts, no words. You don't need words. Just don't think. Just act. Just do. And then this time, my instincts, the wolf's instincts, which are mine, I am the wolf, are screaming to just do it. Just let loose. I was wanting to grab onto him and yank him away, but at this point, that was just the human side wanting to think. And at this point, I know that's the wrong choice, just no longer thinking, instinct driven, and I let him continue. Trailed his other hand around and cupped my large testicles. They're a big alpha sack that was hanging pretty low. And he just gives them a nice little rub, gliding his hand up the backside near my wolf's taint. And he just grips his hands around the top of the testicles and gives them a bit of a tug. At this point, I'm getting excited, and I start poking from the sheath, a little bit of drilling down onto his hand. He nods approvingly, and I push forward into him. And I can tell he really wants it. So I place my hand on the back of his head, down along my hips. And I gruff out again, and I think he understands. He just goes down, just takes in a deep, deep breath of my alpha wolf scent. I'm his alpha, is what I was getting from this. He didn't own or control me. I owned him. He let out a sigh, very soft, deep sigh, opened his mouth, and began suckling on the tip of my sheath. And at this point, I woke up from the dream. I know I shouldn't really think too much of it, but There's been a lot of sexual-based ones recently.
You crew, we gather round, real guys bring the truth profound. These are Germans here, follow me to the message clear. Go Paul, dance and Paul, they say DUANE, the writer leaves the way. Time to madness, it's blight, gotta wake up, see the light. Don't think, just feel the vibe. The sons are gonna cause it drive. Break the chains, the mental hold. Truth unfold, the storms are guide, a cosmic drive. Break the chains, the mental hold. The truth unfold, the story told. We strong, and unite front. Against the darkness, we will hunt. Time to break the simulation spell with new you power. We are skibbity new you, breaking free from the matrix. Forces lurking, reptilian scheme. That lies that control a twisted dream. You together, we rise above. Shattering the lies, spreading risky. I knew you staring at the thing to be done. Staring at the sun, the only thing to be